You're listening to Weather with Enthusiasm. Good evening. It is Wednesday evening, March 20th, 2024. You're listening to Weather with Enthusiasm. An Alberta clipper is headed through the Midwest to bring snow, accumulating snow this evening, and then a potent winter storm develops for the upper Midwest for the beginning parts of next week, a true powerhouse storm for the beginning of next week. Both systems are more complex than what one would ordinarily think, especially the clipper. Clippers are not really known to being complex. In fact, for Chicagoans, clippers are the most reliable snowstorms here in Chicago. They're the weakest snows as well, but they are reliable. Nothing too complex, one would think, about a clipper. What can go wrong? You know, it's not like those powerhouse storms which have a feed of Gulf moisture, and with that you have the warm air. You have to figure out the rain-snow line and stuff like that. Well, with an Alberta clipper, you just have generally their moisture-starved systems racing out of southwest Canada, southern Canada, from Alberta, and they generally produce an inch, maybe 2 inches. If the snow is real powdery, maybe 3 inches, something like that, and it's more widespread, and there really isn't so much that can go wrong. Well, that's in theory. But if you look at the computers for tonight into tomorrow night, you'll see that things are really a lot more complex. There's 2 bands of frontogenesis, is what they're called. One right around the warm front and one right around the cold front. And that widespread 1 to 2 inch thing, or in this case, maybe even a little bit more, isn't really so simple, because areas which are going to be falling within one of those bands of frontogenesis, either by the warm front or the cold front, will be seeing higher snowfall totals. But in addition to that, some areas might actually end up under both bands of frontogenesis, and in that case, they will be getting even higher snowfall totals. At the same time, there is a dry slot that's making its way into the system, and that's also going to be right in between those 2 bands. And for those locations, such as perhaps a certain portion of southern Minnesota, might end up with significantly less snow than other areas. So the Gulf moisture, well, usually these systems are associated with Pacific moisture, and that's what this system is associated with. The feed of moisture in this little system has been identified as coming from the Pacific Ocean. On the weather map, one could argue that perhaps there is some Gulf moisture, perhaps, but most of it gets cut off. So the main feed of moisture, perhaps even all of it, is really coming from the Pacific Ocean. So the question number 1 really is, so if that's the case, what makes this system different than any other Alberta clipper? Why are we speaking about such significant amount of snow? We're talking about a snowstorm of perhaps 8 inches, 4 to 8 inches in portions of Wisconsin in the bullseye. Areas getting more than 6 inches. As of right now, winter weather advisories, I haven't looked up whether there's any winter storm warnings, but there are winter weather advisories, and there's definitely talk about upgrading it to a winter storm warning, says the Bismarck, North Dakota National Weather Service, along with the Minneapolis, Minnesota National Weather Service. So you have forecasts around there, 3 to 5 inches. You have the Milwaukee area with a forecast of 4 to 7 inches. You have the Chicago National Weather Service forecasters, which are talking about how some of the model guidance as of earlier today was pushing for totals of 6 inches or more around the Wisconsin-Illinois border. These are just possibilities of potential, but the Illinois-Wisconsin border one. But things are more complex. We actually do have a rain-snow line discussion as well in this one, because it's occurring so late in the season. It is more complex, especially for Chicago. Chicago, if we were to take the simplest layout, we would just say that we're going to be left with rain, perhaps a little bit of snow, but a good forecaster cannot ignore those models which are showing significant snow just to the north of Chicago. And you also have to wonder at the trend. The trend of the guidance has been continuously going south. Forecasters take that into consideration as well, and all of this is discussed in the various National Weather Service forecast discussions throughout the Midwest cities. This includes Chicago, Milwaukee, Bismarck, North Dakota, and Minneapolis. The Des Moines, Iowa National Weather Service is also dealing with this system. So we have the widespread snow, the general light or moderate snow. Then we have the heavier bands of snow, 2 heavier bands of snow, which may occur over the same area in some locations, and some locations won't. The main heavier band of snow for Minnesota will be number 1, will be the first one, the frontogenesis associated with the warm front. That's going to be from west to east. The second one is more from a north to south or northeast to southwest, something like that. So we could have some isolated spots, possibly getting to 6 inches. If we leave the computer models alone and we just keep things simple, we're left with the following. A major winter storm. The ingredients for a major winter storm in the Midwest, there are 3 of them. Major winter storm is defined as 6 inches or more. One of those ingredients is copious amounts of Gulf moisture. This system does not have copious amounts of Gulf moisture. Therefore, a major winter storm will not be happening in the Midwest. Snowfall accumulations will remain under 6 inches. It will not reach winter storm warning criteria. That's if we just take a simple look at what's going on without looking too deeply into the computer models. And once you look into the computer models, you're left with a whole number of possibilities that could produce more snow than what we would think otherwise. So we'll just leave it at under 6 inches for most areas. Now, perhaps even all areas. But expert forecasters are telling us that snowfall could amount to higher than 6 inches in some localized areas. Now let's get on to the stronger storm, much stronger storm. This is a real storm coming up for the beginning part of next week. Much of the country might not be aware of this storm at all, but it is associated also with bitter cold, like truly amazing cold happening in North Dakota. Temperatures, we have forecasters right now forecasting temperatures to drop below 0 for some cities in North Dakota by Monday or Tuesday morning next week. Totally amazing. I was not able to find it on the European computer model, so I don't know where the forecasters get their information from, but AccuWeather is one of them, so they tend to do a great job, and just the cold is just amazing. Very, very impressive cold for this time of the year. We also have lots to talk about regarding snowfall potential next week. Just if you read the Bismarck, North Dakota National Weather Service forecast discussion, the chances of seeing large amounts of snow are just so high. It's just like although on one hand we're talking about potential, but it's really, it's not just beyond 6 inches. There's even beyond 12 inches is even higher than 50%. And even snow totals of 18 inches is still holding at 50%. So, this storm coming up for the beginning part of next week, although the Minneapolis, Minnesota National Weather Service is let out a warning, clear warning in their forecast discussion to just ignore the enormous amounts of snowfall totals, the just very, very impressive amounts for right now. They're suggesting that it should be ignored because it's several days out. And there also is the possibility that only the initial part will be falling as heavy snow. And for many locations, that heavy snow could change over to heavy rain. So there are complexities in that storm system as usual, but there is also a lot of potential, and for some areas it's even beyond potential. And even if just half of it falls as snow, you're still talking about more than 6 inches. So it's pretty safe to say that a very impactful winter storm will impact the upper Midwest for the beginning parts of next week. A solid 6 to 12, even it's beyond that. There will be an area that will get more than a foot, 18 inches. It's just what the guidance is showing. It's true the Minneapolis, Minnesota National Weather Service is telling us to overlook these large, impressive amounts. The Bismarck, North Dakota has included the percentage-wise of these amounts occurring, and even percentage-wise this far out, it's still quite impressive. So, And that storm system, here's the setup for that. We have a storm system which will be coming out of the Rockies, 29.2. It then moves northeast, but turning more north, negatively tilted. That has copious amounts of Gulf moisture, PWatts of 0.75, and very cold air, which has got to be Arctic origin on the backside. In between these systems, we have the south winds bringing in mild air, and following the storm system, temperatures go back to above normal, even for the upper Midwest. So here's some interesting things, though. The Minneapolis, Minnesota has seen this year 14.3 inches of snow, and that's it. The record for the least snowiest winter occurred in 1930, about 14.2 inches. So it's not the least snowiest winter, but it's pretty close. On average, they see about 51 inches of snow. So we have two systems coming. Each one is a question as to how much it's going to bring. System number 1, probably 3 or 4 inches, and system number 2, probably 6 inches. We're probably going to get another 10 inches out of these two systems. And as we've said, system number 2 might be more significant than just that. So it will help to bring up these snow totals. Here's another thing of great importance is the impact that these storms are going to be having on the East Coast. Both systems turn into a major winter storm in the New England area. System number 1 produces 6 to 12 inches of snow in the bullseye for the New England area. It actually develops into a strong storm system, a coastal storm, by the time it hits the New England area. And system number 2, I don't know much about. I don't know how this is going to interact with any secondary low that develops off the mid-Atlantic area for the beginning parts of next week. The storm system for the early part of next week in the Midwest stays in the middle parts of North America, going up the continent in the middle parts of North America. I don't know much about what's happening on the coast. So but there is another snow, actually. Another snow that for Chicago, in theory, could hit Chicago tonight or tomorrow morning. But current thinking is that the air is so dry that all precipitation will evaporate before reaching the ground. However, people should be aware that if you do wake up tomorrow morning and there is some snow flurries or something like that, that's because the air was not dry enough to evaporate everything. And then there are questions again regarding what's going to be happening tomorrow night and Friday morning. As of now, Chicago stays south of the system, south of the bullseye, possibly even south of the snow, perhaps a rain-snow mix, but the trends are taking that storm further to the south. So we leave off with how simple systems are becoming really complex, especially this Clipper, and it just seems like it's becoming so much more complicated than what it has to be, but that's maybe what it has to be. So, and we still have extraordinary heat continuing in South Sudan as temperatures continue to be in the low 100 in teens. Thunderstorms are expected to make their way in for next week, lowering those temperatures somewhat. But all schools have been canceled through the end of March. The reason why that's remarkable is something really beyond a weather podcast. It's something that you'd have to look into the news to see what South Sudan is all about. And it's just impressive that school would be canceled over there for this type of heat. Anyways, I wish everyone a wonderful night. Enjoy the snow for those people that will be getting snow. This Sunday already for Minneapolis could be a snowstorm for this Sunday. It is Purim. But I wish everybody a Freilich Purim and have an easy fast tomorrow. Lots of people are fasting, and tomorrow is Tanis Esther. So have a great night. You've been listening to Weather with Enthusiasm. This podcast can be found on almost every platform where podcasts are available.